One of the issues that we've got in New Zealand and have had for some time is the declining reputation. Well, and it's a really interesting when I use the words declining reputation of tertiary institutions in New Zealand vis-a-vis other international universities. Yesterday I reported on a really strange story that was surfaced on both Stuff and on News Talk ZB. In fact, I think it was in our news at 11 o'clock yesterday, that said that the latest rankings, and I think they might have been the Times Higher Education World University rankings, had seen New Zealand University plummet, which there's sort of a comment there on whoever taught that particular journalist English. They've gone from 150, this is Auckland University, from 150 to 153. I don't know if you would have used the word plummet. I would have probably smacked a fifth form English student over the knuckles for using that word in that context, but there you go. But that other universities had declined as well. Interestingly, and then I commented on it, it was gone, that story, by 12 o'clock. So it was got New Zealand Herald led on its internet with site with it. As I said, News Talk ZB reported at 11 o'clock news, and then suddenly it was gone. And I'm assuming, hopefully our next guest will actually tell us why that was happened. I suspect somebody broke an embargo, to be fair. But there, nevertheless, when I went to university rankings were essentially what other people thought they were. So it was word of mouth that qualified for your rankings, essentially. But then they started to institutionalise them. And now there are, as I understand, 3 major university rankings, and New Zealand is not doing so good on them. One presumes that Times Higher Education, or whatever the ranking was that sort of disappeared yesterday, will come back later in this week. But leading into that, this is a good time to go and talk about rankings, their place. Is New Zealand doing as badly as it seems to be doing over the last 10 years, and if so, why? And Universities New Zealand Chief Executive Chris Whelan joins us. Chris, lovely to have you on the show. Thank you so much for making yourself available.
Pleased to be here.
Listen, mate, do you know anything about that ranking yesterday? It was a major story in New Zealand Herald. News Talk ZB, as I've just said in my intro, gone. Are you aware of any of the background to that story?
Yes, I am, and absolutely you're right. They accidentally broke the embargo. So the story will be taken down and put back up again this morning.
It'll be put up again this morning because the embargo won't be broken. Okay. Well, I saw enough of that to realise that the headline from the New Zealand media yesterday was that New Zealand's academic institutions, or our tertiary institutions, are falling again, which seems to be falling in line with our educational standards on, the OPEC tests and things like that as well. First of all, do you rate these rankings? That's the first question I've got, Chris. And second, if you don't, does everybody else?
Look, rankings have always been a controversial and fraught area. So they were first established basically around 2010, 2012. They were done initially by Shanghai, which is one of the big 3. Times Higher very quickly got in on the act, followed by a split out from Times, Quattrochelli Simons, or QS, as they're more commonly known. Now, all of them thought, hey, there's a real market here. People are interested in knowing, which university should we send our kids to. It sold copy. And it turned out it also sold really good consulting services because universities suddenly found that students wanted to go to higher ranked universities. So you got this nice little virtuous cycle for the rankings agencies to be able to sell consulting services and data to help universities move up the rankings, to help with things like student and even later on staff recruitment. Now, they measure what's easy to measure. So they track things like research, citations. They do things like they measure academic reputation, so they actually survey academics. They measure things like the proportion of your university staff that are recruited internationally, and a few other things like that. The easy to measure things, which is why universities tend to kind of shake their heads and go, well, that's not the full story. It doesn't tell much of a story around your graduates getting jobs. Is the quality of the teaching good? Are you successfully transferring knowledge to the communities in which you're located? It just measures the things that are easy to measure. But they have become a whole language in their own right. And, at the end of the day, everyone has to care about them now.
Well, it's interesting you to say that, including the universities. When the former finance minister, Grant Robertson, became the chief executive or the chancellor, the vice chancellor of Otago University, one of the things he immediately said was Otago University is in the top 1% of universities in the world. When he was asked about that, he said, well, it's what the rankings, prove. So obviously universities themselves take them pretty seriously as a marketing exercise.
We have to now. And the simple fact is, I'm guilty of it myself. I may meet with a delegation from, insert name of country here, say Korea or Taiwan. I often don't know the universities, and the easy thing to do is just to go quickly online, have a look at their rankings, and you'll very quickly get a bit of a sense of, how strong are they from a research perspective. It doesn't tell you much more than that. But if you're an academic staff member and you're in the same situation and, there's a job that's come up in an international university, actually you do care about rankings and you do care about research and the impact of, in your particular subject area, how they're perceived. So they have become quite important for recruiting academic staff, particularly academic researchers, and international students. 83% of students in the last survey I saw said they at least considered rankings, and around about 18% said actually it was a key factor in determining which university to choose between. Once they'd found the country they wanted to go to, they would often use the ranking to go, okay, we want to study engineering, we're going to go for this university because it's better ranked than this other one.
Did you say 83%?
83% at least look at the rankings and consider them as one factor.
That's phenomenal. Mind you, my daughters went to Auckland University. She chose Auckland University in good part because of its ranking as what she considered to be the best university in New Zealand. And then she did something else too. And these rankings also break it into subject areas as well, don't they? So it's not just your ranking on the university as an entire institution, but they also break it into the schools of as well.
Yeah. And rankings need to be taken with a lot of caution because, again, if you're a student and you're looking at a university based purely on rankings, it doesn't speak to student experience. It doesn't speak to culture, the extent to which, what kind of lifestyle you're going to have. So there's a lot of other factors that students rightly should be looking at alongside, things like rankings.
Yeah, but I'm assuming, and this is the thing that would be disturbing you, I would imagine, Chris, I would be assuming that as the rankings grip in importance, and that's really interesting to say that they started only, 12, 14 years ago and have assumed this primacy now, that soon the quality of your undergraduate degree will have, particularly with potential employers as well, I would assume, will matter as to which university you were educated at, surely.
It's sort of it's a weaker link that way. So employers tend to have a pretty good sense in New Zealand of what kind of skills a graduate in, say, accountancy will have from one university versus another university versus, say, a polytechnic. Employers themselves won't tend to look as much at things like rankings. They are much more interested in their experience with graduates and whether graduates have been competent and generally able to do what their degree implies they should be able to.